Hello and welcome to round 8 of the Automobilista AustraliaRookie Cup. It is the final round of the third season, and this evening we're at the famous Monza circuit. It does have an Autodromo in there somewhere. Autodromo Nazionale Monza. And tonight we've been joined once again by Rody. Welcome.
Hey Lewis, great to be back. It's flying quickly this eight round season. Sorry, but the final round of the Rookies Cup is upon us.
Yeah, the last few rounds in particular have just flown by. We're just in the warm-up session at the moment. You have had qualifying where Steve Bolger is on pole position, followed by Brendan Ross. I'll just try and find the result. I won't be able to bring it up on your screen, but I'll be able to go through it with you before, obviously, the session ticks over in a couple seconds' time. But Steve Bolger on pole position, a 2-minute 10.1. That was the fastest time set by any driver currently in the server. And then we had Brendan Ross on a 2:11.4. Gary Neville a 2:11.7. Coulston a 14.0. Ricky Slick a 19. He had a spin. Glenn Miles at 20. I believe he had a spin, as did Walsh, Joyner, and Turmo. Well, it is the Cathedral of Speed. Unless I'm mixing that up with another circuit. Obviously, top speed around here for these cars is going to be about 220 kilometers an hour. And I'll just bring up the circuit info. There it is on your screen. We're at Monza, Italy, 5.793 kilometers. We've got 3 races tonight. Obviously, being a longer circuit, much longer than we've had throughout the year. About double the length, just about. Only 7 laps. This circuit has 11 turns. We've only got 9 drivers in the server at the moment. Mike Coulston actually had obviously because of chat in qualifying, he was moved to the back of the grid. Obviously, that is a rule. We have no text chat during qualifying and or races. And the drivers now forming up onto the grid. So, Rody, with the practice we've had so far, who's looking the goods and who's your pick for race 1?
Look, the drivers I saw, and granted there are a couple of spins there, which are going to happen around this track. It's a big track, and it's an easy supposed to get lost at on this track. It's going to be really anyone that can keep it clean. There are some deep gravel traps here, which are obviously intended for safety. This is built to deal with a lot faster cars, but you bury these little cars in them, and they won't be coming out anytime soon. Pole went to Steve Bolger, Brendan Ross in second, and he's been picking up high positions across other series as well. Gary Neville third, and Ricky Slick back and forth, but he's got a big gap and forth. That said, he's got pace. I think it's anywhere. I think in those top 4 could come out in the top 3 and possibly up to a podium. But it's really hard for me to make a guess at this stage. After this first race panned out, I'll have a better idea. But I just wanted to say as well, speaking of Mike Coulston, he actually hasn't made the race. He dropped out of the session just before the session ticked over, and he hasn't come back. So I think we're down to an 8-car grid.
Well, that's a shame. Obviously, he was due to start at the back for this one, but hopefully he'll be back in time for the second and third race. He did have some technical issues at practice, but he did get them sorted. But unfortunately, another error, obviously costing him the ability to race in this one. But started the formation lap, and we'll just go through the grid. As you can see on your screen, Steve Bolger will lead us away. He's been on pole position plenty of times in the Rookie Cup, but he hasn't got the best record converting, but he'll be hoping to hold on this evening. In second place, Brendan Ross. In third, we've got Gary Neville. Ricky Slick in fourth place. Glenn Miles, P5. Brian Walsh, P6. Followed by Luke Joyner and Turmo in 7th and 8th. And just to touch on, obviously, the pace that the drivers have shown. Steve Bolger, obviously, he set his personal best in qualifying, which is what you want to do on a shootout lap. But the pace between himself and Ricky Slick was only separated by half a second. So there's not much to separate them, and as with all Rookie Cup races, it's going to come down to consistency, and probably in Ricky's case, probably a little bit of luck, because if those cars in front of him break the toe, he might struggle a little bit to hold on.
Yeah, he will struggle to hold on a little bit. Yeah, it's any racing is always a case of being able to put in that one lap pace is good. Being able to consistently maintain that pace across a race is the bigger priority, and also be able to keep it out of the fence, out of the wall, out of the gravel trap. We saw that with it was the Supercars race actually on Thursday, Super 2 race, sorry, where a couple of drivers had plenty of pace, but unfortunately some of them had computer issues, some of them had issues in the car that meant that they didn't end up finishing at the top step of the podium. But it's all going to be about is stretching that pace out over 7 laps, and yeah, and it's also going to be a lot of strategy to play in this track because it is a big long track, plenty of big long straights, which Formula rookies either, or Formula Fords, I'll use that because I know what they are in real life. Formula rookies love Formula Fords love big long straights because that's where they can jump into big slipstream trains and slipstream battles, and we should see, granted they aren't natively as well experienced with that type of racing, but even in the rookies we should still see plenty of that across the 3 races tonight.
Yeah, so that is one thing to look out for. I'm pretty sure we'll see slipstream trains throughout all 3 races tonight. Just before the drivers do grid up, might as well bring up the championship standings. And well, Wayne Whitmore's not appeared in the last couple of rounds, and so that's Steve Bolger to build up a bit of a lead. Actually, no, I do believe Whitmore made the last round, but it wasn't a good one. But either way, Bolger in the lead, 419 points. Whitmore not here on 381. Brandon Roast on 378. Termo 338. Cracker, who's not here tonight, on 221. Lee Sanford on 122. And Ricky Slick, he'll be hoping to continue his form. He's on 75. And Scott Murrell on 60. Well, that's it for that, because the drivers have just formed up and we're just about to get underway here. 1 light, 2, 3, 4, 5, and away we go. Looks like Brendan Ross jumped pretty quickly there, and looks like he's going to get a good run, and probably, yes, he is into the lead already, but still it is a very, very long run into turn 1.
Yeah, poor start from, I think a lot of guys were the back. There's a massive gap now established between Ricky Slick and Brian Walsh in 4th and 5th. Speaking of Ricky, he's just gone up the inside of Gary Neville to make that now 3rd. Bit of a wiggle there from Steve Bolger up in 2nd as well from that exit curve as they come out of the first chicane.
Yep, so that is the field, and they've got Brendan Ross followed by Steve Bolger. Ricky Slick now up into P3. And as you said, a gap between himself and Gary Neville, who's got Brian Walsh not far behind. So the front 3, and then there's obviously a gap of 5, or a few car lengths, obviously between Ricky and Gary Neville, and then got the remaining 5 after that.
Yeah, I think one of the early losers off of that was Glenn Miles. Unfortunately, he's actually just gone through. I think he's just going to get. No, he might be stuck in his gravel trap, but he had a poor start and was getting rounded up. But he's caused a localized yellow. He is stuck in a gravel trap on the exit of the 2nd chicane.
I think he should have kept his foot in it, but he got out of it, and it's unfortunately beached him, because these cars do beach very easy. And back at the front, Brendan Ross already starting, obviously, to move the snake along. He's got Steve Bolger right behind him, and those 2 swerving, obviously, down that back straight there.
Yeah, I think we'll have something happen to Brian Walsh 1 point as well, because he's now down to 7th. He was not far off the back of his teammates as such, Gary Neville, but he's now sitting in 7th and he's 2 seconds, 3 seconds off the back of Turner, so I think he's had an incident somewhere through possibly the Lesmos as well.
Well, the front 2 now, they've broken away. They've got a little bit of a gap over Ricky Slick, as Brendan Ross drifts it a little bit through the final turn, Curva Parabolica. And with these cars, around this track in particular, you've really got to hustle them and slide them just a little bit, just to get the best out of them. Obviously, that last corner, you want to slide a little bit on entry, but the first chicane that they're coming up to, that's one you don't want to slide through.
No, you're going very hot into this chicane. Speaking of going very hot, Steve Bold just coming up the inside, got slipstream on Brendan Ross, and he looked like he was going to take a pass for a second there, but he's brought it back in a line, and he's going to try and cut it back on the exit.
He tried to switch back, but Brendan Ross blocked him on the entry to obviously turn 2, and that's held him up just a little bit, and it's allowed Ricky Slick just to edge a little bit closer.
I mean, yeah, the main strategy at this point would be to try and work together, at least in this early stage. If they can get themselves out of Slick's swing range of Ricky, no matter what he does, if they can keep their driving clean and smart, they'll drive away from him and they'll guarantee themselves at least second, if not first, in the two of them. So.
And we've already seen coming out of Varianta there that already, you know, coming obviously out of that second chicane that they do. Obviously, Brendan Ross trying to break the toe, but to be honest, it's a bit in vain in these cars because they're just going to follow you anyway, and the straight's too long for it to really make any kind of difference.
Yeah, trying to break the toe trying to break the toe in action of itself doesn't really work too well here. You've got some long straights, you can go back and get the slipstream again, and it's just not worth trying to do. But if you can outdrive someone in an actual slipstream battle, for example, if Bolger and Ross can together to slipstream back the way out to Ricky's range, then they're clear, and then there's nothing that Ricky can do about it. He can, unless he can put down laps that are in dirty air faster than they are in sort of clean air as such, he's going to have no chance to grab a win. So it's down to the two leaders as such to not only, you know, play it safely, but also work together to achieve a better result and achieve fighting their own battle as such.
Well, on that last lap, Ricky Slick did edge a few tenths closer, and looks like Bolger trying to send it up the inside this time, but he's going to run out of road and backs out of it. But then gets back in it as looks like Ross got on the brakes very early, and then once again Steve Bolger very conservative, and now he's got Ricky Slick right behind him. And then in fourth place, Luke Joyner, Gary Neville having a little bit of a battle too, with Turmo not too far behind either. But now Ricky Slick coming out of that first chicane. And having a look into the second chicane. But,
he had a look under brakes, but very early he realised that wasn't going to be a really good nature. He had to drag it back to him, so it was a bit of wobble through his car under brakes there. But yeah, he's going to play it smart. He's got the pace. He set the best lap last time around with it. So even though these two in front have actually been working together, and said, "Oh, that was a big slide from Rossi."
Yeah, that's going to cost him badly. In fact, that's probably going to drop him almost out. I reckon. Oh, it's Turmo in the background there. He loses it as well out of the second Lesmo there. And Brendan Ross, that's probably going to end his race. I don't think he's going to be able to catch up to the front two unless they battle very hard. And in fact, they're coming up to Glenn Miles, who's beached it at Ascari.
Ooh, Brendan Ross nearly joined him there as well. He got another massive slide on into Ascari.
And yeah, Brendan Ross now overtaken by Gary Neville, who finds himself in P3, and looks like Luke Joyner wants a piece of that action, boss, because he's now moved up into fourth place, but he's side by side still with Brendan Ross.
Yeah, there's a couple of drives from Brendan Ross that seems to actually likes a loose setup car that allows him to slide around, but this is one of the occasions where it's not paid off for him at all. He's dropped 3 spots, or he dropped 2 or 3 spots in the course of a couple of corners, and he's possibly almost now back to 5th here if anyone can get a run on him down the straight.
Well, these scenes are almost, so they crossed the line there, 3 cars very close together. Obviously, this was the place where the closest, I believe, finish in Formula 1 history ever took place. I believe Jackie Stewart winning that one back in the 1960s, where there was a 3-car dead heat. But wouldn't surprise me if we saw a finish similar to that one. That said, though, Steve Bolger has eked out a little bit more of a gap now over Ricky Slick after all that. So not a good final sector for Ricky Slick, and now Steve Bolger can concentrate on just keeping it clean and not about having to defend his lead.
Yeah, that last lap there, Bolger put out a 2:11.4 to Ricky's 2:11.5, so we just over a tenth of a second quicker on that last lap. Ricky's still got a best lap 3 times better than Bolger. He's unable to extract that pace at the moment.
behind them, Brendan Ross has found a way past Gary Neville. We'll just have a look on the replay. It looks like he had him into the first chicane there, so we'll just go back a little bit further. Yeah, late braking move alongside into the first chicane, and he got it done. And now Gary Neville under attack from Luke Joyner. Closest battle on the circuit. I don't think Joyner's going to be close enough coming into Ascari.
Yep, oh, it's a big dive.
And there's Ross off again at Ascari, so he's going to drop behind these two, I'd imagine. No, he's kept his foot in and remains in third place, but it's given Gary Neville a good run. And I'd say Gary Neville will get him coming into Parabolica.
So he had very dirty tyres off of that, and also got a terrible run off the corner because he spent half it in the gravel trap, so that puts him back to fourth again. Luke Joyner sitting there just in case anything goes down between these two through Parabolica.
And looking at the live chat, looks like Mike Coulston, obviously he's on 4G and Sandstorm, so that's the reason why he has dropped out. And Steve Bolger, their fastest lap of the race at 10.6, or Ricky Slick on that last lap in 11.1. So Ricky's going to have to pick up his pace if he wants to keep his perfect record intact.
Yeah, just looking back in the battle for third and fourth, Brendan Ross pulling way almost into the pit exit lane to try and break the toe.
And Joyner makes a massive dive, and yeah, he's ran into the back of Brendan Ross there. Damage is turned down, so it shouldn't affect either car, but that certainly would be a bit frustrating for Brendan Ross, who, after cutting the chicane subsequent to that contact, has now increased his gap over these two. As Gary Neville very close to Luke Joyner, but Gary Neville gets it done.
Yeah, the problem for Luke Joyner with he hampered his run off the corner and also boosted Ross off the same corner. So he actually hampered his run and also very much helped Ross's run, giving himself Ross a nice gap over Neville and himself.
Yes, and behind them, after Turmo's mistake, he was behind Brian Walsh, but he has gotten past. And looks like Glenn Miles has retired, so he couldn't get out of the gravel trap. And the battle for fourth continues, and Joyner's got a good exit out of the second Lesmo, and he will take fourth place. Well, he should take fourth place, but it looks like Gary Neville's actually a bit faster in a straight line, so perhaps the gearing in Luke Joyner's car not quite right. That said, though, he does send it up the inside. Ooh. There is contact and a half spin from Joyner there, and Gary Neville holds on. Let's have a look at
lucky to get out of that. Just
have a look at that on replay. On board Luke Joyner. Just send it there, and Gary Neville just turning in on just a little bit there. That's now. That gap's probably spread out to about a second now. And another fastest lap, Steve Bolger, 10.3. So he's travelling very quickly at the moment. And a 10.3 as well for Ricky Slick. He was only a thousandth of a second slower.
Whoa.
So these two travelling very rapidly. And Ricky Slick trying all he can to put the pressure on Steve Bolger into a mistake, who, it has to be said, has made a few in the series, so you never know what might happen. As Turmo now, new fastest lap at 2 minute 10.197. That's the second fastest lap of the weekend of all cars in the server currently.
Yeah, I was just watching I was watching that on live timing, and I saw him pop a purple second sector, and then came back with a purple third sector. So he's not having to worry about any of the battles that the leaders or any of the mid-pack guys are worrying about. He's in entirely clear air. The car back to him from him is Brian Walsh, who's just came off to the first chicane. The car in front of him is Luke Joyner, who's currently still trying to catch up to the back of Gary Neville. So he's got a lot of clear air.
Oh, and Joyner all over the sausage curb there at the second chicane, and he got airborne there. In real life, he probably would have done his back or something, or broken a suspension arm or something, because he did get a lot of air there. But yeah, back on Turmo, he'll be quite frustrated. Obviously, didn't get his qualifying lap together, as Brendan Ross is off. So Brendan Ross now out of a podium position once again at the second Lesmo. So that corner giving him all kinds of grief. But yeah, Turmo, he'll be kicking himself for obviously not qualifying well, and then a mistake a couple laps in. because
Well, yeah. I mean, what it's doing though at this point though is not so much that these big slides there from Temo. It's not so much Brendan Ross's nature, but what we're finding is it's not necessarily all about qualifying because Brendan Ross out-qualified Temo quite healthily. At the moment, they're sitting limestone on track, and Temo's actually got a better run through here than he does. He is still 2 seconds back on him, but they are on the same piece of track. And if Ross keeps pushing it off through the Lesmos, Temo's going to find himself up another spot, which will put him up to 5th. Oh, way up there. Sorry, Temo. Saying corrected. I've just given the commentator's curse. Temo got a massive drift to the start of Parabolica and lost the back end.
The replay and see what he's done here. He's did a few laps in these cars myself, and you brake at the 100-meter mark, otherwise you will lose the back end like that. So he just got too greedy, trying to push too hard, and around she goes. But back at the front, Steve Bolger on that last lap. 2:10.9, Ricky Slick 2:10.3. The gap is under a second now. Ricky Slick may just be getting a little bit of a slipstream now on the final lap here, so he has a chance. In fact, he's right behind Steve Bolger. So Ricky Slick very quick through the De La Roggia chicane, and he's given himself a great chance if he could just hold on through the Lesmos.
Yeah, that third section of starting in the scenario, covering Parabolica and a few straight on the side of it after the start finish line.
And they're coming up.
He's probably picked up a slipstream there and got a lot of.
And they're coming up to a yellow. I believe that's Brian Walsh there off in the gravel to the left. Hasn't hampered these two. Ricky Slick has held on, but he'll want to get a bit closer through Ascari and obviously give himself a chance to make a move into Parabolica because he's not close enough at Ascari.
Yeah, Bolger just putting it just in the back. They're trying to block off any move there, but Ricky was too far back. But if he gets good run out here, Ricky can all over the back.
Yeah, he's got a good run here. He's given himself every opportunity. Has Ricky Slick. Steve Bolger's only got one move really, and that's just to hug the line on the inside, hug the paint, and force Ricky to go around the outside at Parabolica. So here we go. Ricky Slick breaks late. He's around the outside, but he's not going to get on the throttle as early as what Steve Bolger will be able to do. Bolger will hold on because the line is at the start of the pit lane, so Steve Bolger just holds on. I dare say if it... look at that, under a tenth of a second. If it was at the start-finish line where they just crossed there, the old version of Monza, I reckon Ricky Slick might have just nicked it, but still a great finish to the first race of the final round of the season. And Gary Neville, nice and consistent in this one, no mistakes, and very well earned P3 for him. Brendan Ross will finish in P4, and he'll be followed by Luke Joyner in P5. And Termo, who was very quick in that one. Obviously, well, he'll probably be very, very frustrated with his inconsistencies and slight mistakes because, yeah, as we saw, fastest lap of the race and very, very quick. So he'll be hoping to put it together in the second and third races.
It will be. I'll be honest, I entirely forgot that was a 7-lap race. I was not watching the timer, and I also forgot. I didn't realise they're running the new lane, so I was expecting that to go another lap or two. But yeah, great run by Ricky at the end. He just couldn't catch him in the end. Part of the problem was he went on the outside and got that done perfectly, but he got a little bit of tail action happening as he went to go for the throttle initially, which is why he had to back off, running a lot higher speed and running a high line through the corner, and especially out in the marbles partially is what caused that, as opposed to Steve Bolger, who was on the inside line. There was plenty of grip there. It was a slower line, but he got the throttle a lot sooner because he was actually running more of his usual race pace as well. So he got the throttle a lot sooner, and that's what gave him the run for the line.
Yep. And, well, last of our finishes should be Brian Walsh. Obviously, he was beached on the final lap, as we saw, or for a couple laps there at the second Lesmo on the outside there. He got himself going, had a bit of smoke going there for a while, but his engine's cooled off and he's coming through Parabolica now. So he'll be the last finisher in P7, with Glenn Miles being the only, obviously, non-finisher of the first race. Yeah,
so eight starters, 7 finishers. That's pretty good. Unfortunately, we did also lose Mike Coulston to internet and a sandstorm, which is I think it's the first time we've had that as a reason for someone not making it to the race session. But yeah, that was pretty good. Monza can bite as a track. I would know. I've driven a Bentley around here couple of weeks ago for the GT3 series, and part of it was my lack of ability, but the track did bite quite heavily when it wanted to. So yeah, for everyone but one to finish. Unfortunately, the only reason that we lost Glenn Miles was due to just a lot of time in the gravel traps. Yeah, we hope we learn, and it looks like we've got Mike Coulston back as well, so we should be up to 9 cars for the second race.
Yeah, good to see him back. Obviously, it will be a short turnover. There is another qualifying session, 2 qualifying sessions, and the final race will be reverse championship auto grid. So, pretty entertaining finish, at least for the lead. But with the pace that we have seen from a number of the drivers, obviously, we could see a close finish between pretty much half the field here tonight, because we've got obviously Steve Bolger at 10.1, his fastest lap, Turmo at 10.1, Ricky Slick at 10.2, Brendan Ross at 10.3, Gary Neville did a 10.9. So if he had a slipstream or something like that, or followed the lines of perhaps a couple of the other faster guys, saw what they were doing, he could find a bit of time, as could Luke Joyner. So you could see a cracking second race. In any case, we'll just take a short minute or so break, and then we'll be back with qualifying for the second race. Alright, and welcome back to qualifying for the second race of the final round of the third season of the Rookie Cup, and we've just seen Brian Walsh go once again off at the Lesmo, the second Lesmo, but this time just gets out of it and doesn't beach it, and he'll be able to continue on and set his lap. That was an out lap that he is on. Just having a scan through the field to see who is out there, and Brian Walsh, I do believe, is the most advanced car out there, so we'll stick with him. Here he is, and he's just coming up to, or going through, I should say, Variante Ascari. And this long back straight coming up to the final and 11th corner, which is Parabolica.
Yeah, it's quite an important final corner. As we saw, the result of that last race was decided on the run through that final corner. It's a big corner, so it will end your lap. The final corner always ends your lap and sets up your lap at the same time. This one is a big corner. It's really important to get it right, and that's not quite the way to do it. Big slide there for Walshy up to the outside green edge.
Yeah, these cars being very much momentum cars around this circuit, that final corner, Parabolica, you do need to get the entry right so you can get on the power early and just carry the throttle flat through and give yourself a good run down here to the Del Rettifilio. And Brian Walsh, he's fourth gear very, very short because he was hitting the limit a long time there. The worst run through the first chicane that you can do, but he would have lost time just sitting on the rev limiter. But his biggest problem at the moment is the Lesmos, so he'll be hoping to obviously keep it clean for the whole lap, but especially the Lesmos.
Yeah, every driver and sometimes every track will have a full corner, and for a lot of guys it seems either the Lesmos or the Scari. But
he's
this
outbrake himself.
New one for him.
He's outbrake himself at the second chicane. You want to be braking it around the bridge, and he's on the racing line pretty much. As I don't know who that is. Car number 2.
That's Steve Bolger.
Steve Bolger on an out lap, so thankfully didn't affect anybody's lap time. But yeah, that's.
But then it's coming around is Termo, so he has got out the way because Termo's on a flyer as well.
Yeah, Termo just starting his lap, and he gets it.
Ooh.
Very twitchy under braking. He's done the same. He's done the same thing. So. That's another thing around, obviously, this Monza circuit. Braking is very, very important in these cars. They are a little bit twitchy under braking if you don't get it right. And Termo, well, that's if he does get it out of there, it's going to be a very slow lap time.
Yeah, speaking of going around, Glenn Miles went around and the entrance to the first chicane as well. It seems a lot of guys maybe got used to the heat in their tyres and the brakes that they had from that first race and are expecting it to be back out in quali and are pinching and locking brakes that way. That would be my guess, because it's only happened in big braking zones. But every driver, bar one, I think at this point, or bar two, have actually been caught out by that. Bolger, fortunately, but unfortunately, was only in his out lap. So hopefully we don't curse him into doing that on his flying lap. And there's another car who passed Termo.
Mike Coulston. Mike Coulston is currently on a lap. And it's just crossed the second split. Not a bad first split, but his middle one, he'll want to find about 3 seconds there. So perhaps he had a moment himself, or perhaps he's just getting used to the circuit. I think he's just getting used to the circuit. I don't think he's done too many laps around here, but he's coming up to the final turn. And Luke Joyner's had a fairly decent first split of 41.9. So we'll see how he goes once Mike Coulston crosses the start-finish line. So Coulston to set the first time lap of the second qualifying session to 14.8. That's 0.8 off his personal best.
Yeah, he popped in at the time. He's just picked up the last purple sector, but he's only one of the guys to actually complete this final sector so far. Joiner's not oncoming. Joiner's got 2 purple sectors so far, and he's just crossed the line there to. Sorry, no, that was Termo. Sorry.
Yeah, so Termo did get out of the gravel trap. Obviously, 1 minute 5 in the middle sector, so that cost him a good 22 or so, 21 seconds. But Luke Joyner, he's put in a solid lap so far, and this will put him to the top of the timesheet. 2:11.2, so not bad from him. 2/10 of his personal best. Also got Steve Bolger out on a lap at the moment. He's had a spin because he's 5 seconds down in the first sector. So our race 1 winner probably not going to start from pole position here, barring some kind of track cut or miracle.
Yeah, I was going to say, I hope we did Kirsten. I think we might have. He's possibly had a spin similar place to any other drivers we've seen so far, and even those that he's unfortunately missed spins for. But I'm guessing, yeah, that's probably the issue. A lot of drivers, it just probably got a little too used to what they could do in the race with increased warmth through the car and not having it in practice, or sorry, in qualifying on a one-lap shootout format, basically. It means that they're pinching brakes and these things, if you don't have to wait for, they will come to these buddies and swap ends quite happily, so that's probably what's taking on to that. There he goes, nearly again.
Bit of a drift through the final turn, but we'll hold on. And I think another thing to take note of is without a practice session, obviously I don't think there's as much grip out on the circuit as well, so that's another thing to look out for. After the first races here, this sits at 2:15.6. He was faster in the middle and final sector, but that first sector spin killed him. 43.9 in the middle sector, pretty good, and 44.8 in the final sector for Steve Bolger. So currently P3, but you'd imagine that a couple of guys will go faster than that.
Yeah, interestingly, we've still got Luke Jonas for that lapping. He's not setting any sector times. Sorry, he's not setting any purple sectors, but I don't think he's already completed his 1 lap anyway, so he can't improve upon his time as it is anyway.
Well, if he crosses the start-finish line out on the circuit, he'll find himself starting from the back with a disqualification. So hopefully he realises that you only get 1 timed lap, or you only got really 1 chance, because if you stuff up your first time up, you can't go again and set a lap. So hopefully he pits. Currently looking
he is pitting, yes.
Currently looking at Gary Neville. He's about to cross the second split, 4/10 down. Not a bad lap so far, but not his best. Nice run there through Ascari. So he set himself up well here in the final sector.
Yeah, so far a pair of green sectors for Gary Neville. He's ahead of Mike Coulston so far by probably half a second at least, doing some rough math there. So if he keeps it up, he should slot quite happily into second.
Yeah, it's 2/10 slower in each sector so far, but his run through Ascari and Parabolica not too bad. And yeah, he sort of maintained the gap to Luke Joyner there, and he's provisionally P2. We still have Ricky Slick and Brendan Ross to set a lap time with, obviously after Brian Walsh's spin, he decided to park it.
Yeah, which is a shame that he didn't get a chance to set a representative time. I think Glenn Miles also had a spin also, and also missed out on a chance setting a time. So 2 drivers that are going to be starting to come back into it regardless of how this session goes for the main 2 drivers. But yeah, Ricky just in his out lap now, I believe, and Miles also on his out lap. Sorry, Ross.
Yes, Ross and Ricky Slick coming down the back straight, coming up to Parabolica. And about 50 seconds left in the session. So these 2 will be the last drivers to set, or possibly set, a lap time, barring a track cut or a spin.
Yeah, I think they're probably waiting for the most rubber to be laid down. There is much less than we had in the race, of course, but any little bit of rubber is going to help improve times here, and
Alright, so riding on board Brendan Ross at turn 1 here. You want to brake at about 150 first gear, take a little bit of curve as he's done. Probably wants to get on the throttle a little bit earlier than that. Gets the back out a little bit, but manageable. So a fairly decent run through the first chicane, and then you keep it flat through Grand Curve here. Curve Grande, I should say. To De La Rogia, there it is, half a tenth up on the Luke Joyner, 41.8, very solid first sector. Bit conservative through the chicane there, you you want to be flat as you're hitting that second curb in that chicane there. It is possible. Down to second here for the first Lesmo, and he's had to sort of feather the throttle a little bit there. You want to be flat as soon as you get the front end in. Down to second again for the second Lesmo, and again you want to be flat as soon as you, or just after you've turned in there, after you take a little bit of curve at the second Lesmo. But once again, it's a fan of the throttle, so not the greatest run through the Lesmos, but still a pretty solid lap so far. And then coming up here, up by almost 2/10, want to brake at about 105 metres as he's done, take a bit of curb, nice, run it out to the second part, take a bit of curve for the final part, and yeah, that's a pretty decent run through Ascari. So you can have a coffee, read the paper, go for a jog, come back, and you'll be wanting to brake at 100 metres for the Parabolica here. He's broken just a bit after that, and it's cost him entry speed and ran him a little bit wide. He hasn't been able to get on the throttle as early as what you'd like. But still, he didn't spin it or anything like that, so I don't think he would have lost too much time, and that should put him, and it does, put him on provisional pole at 2:10.6.
Ooh.
And Ricky Slick goes P2 on 2:11.1.
As with that last race, right down to the final sector, first sector it was Ross quickest by 10th. Second sector, Ricky had him up by 10th, but all in that third sector there, Ricky got a massive slide through the start of Parabolica, and that's what dropped him 4/10 back on Ross and ultimately podium position.
Yeah, so obviously that final sector that starts from on live races. It's actually incorrect where that sector is. It's actually obviously just before the Ascari chicane there, and that chicane there, if you're very quick through there, generally that sets you up well, even though there's a long straight to Parabolica. That's generally where a lot of that lap time is, and we did see Brendan Ross was very quick through Ascari, and I think that's what got him the majority of that time, because obviously he lost time, obviously just out braking himself at Parabolica. So that run through Ascari was the big difference there, and I think if you're Scruff or Ricky Slick or Dicky Prick or Pricky Dick, you probably want to look at Ascari, getting that right, and then just concentrating on hitting the mark at the final corner, and you'll find your time.
Yeah, that'll be it. Or as I said, there was you do want to avoid any massive slide jobs through Parabolica, because a couple of guys have actually spun off, as we've seen earlier, due to that. But yeah, Ascari is a big one to get right. I'm going to make sure that I'm not trying to talk from some position of higher level about it, because Ascari is where I had most of my crashes in the Bentley. But yeah, it's an important one to get right.
Yeah, it is a tricky one. It invites you to turn in early because you can take a bit of curb, but you do have to hold off just a little bit. And obviously, it being uphill as well, it can invite you to brake that little bit later. And sometimes, obviously, to a lot of guys' detriment, you brake too late and you end off in the boonies and in the gravel trap.
Yeah, that gravel trap is quite inviting. There's almost a magnet out there for some of the drivers tonight.
Yep, so I'll just try and bring up, obviously we didn't bring up the, just trying to find a good cinematic view here of the circuit. There we go. Now, didn't get a chance to bring up the rookie standings, obviously prior to race one, but there it is on your screen, and Gary Neville extends his lead in the rookie class of the Rookie Cup. Was on 3:38, and then Glenn Miles on 2:60. Hugh DNF, I believe that's his first DNF of the season, so his streak coming to an end. And Brian Walsh there on 2:11. Mike Coulston 1:53. Luke Joyner, obviously he would have moved up in front of Mike Coulston, who unfortunately Obviously, it was attacked by Darude, and his 4G failed. And then we've got Brownie on 143. Haven't seen him for a while, which is a bit sad, but hopefully we see him next season. Same with Ben Purse, Coops, Demayan, who only showed up for 2 rounds early on, and Lime Mitch as well. Obviously, both those guys only showing up for, I think, a couple of rounds early on in the season.
Yeah, a couple of drivers that we don't really see part of the season, which is a shame in a way. But we hope that that does indicate a leave from Automobilista as a whole, whether it just means they've moved on to onto maybe bigger and better series, which is the point of Rookie Cup, is to get drivers prepared for the bigger and scarier world of Automobilista racing as a whole.
Yeah, that's it. Obviously, so this series is it's encouraged, obviously, for guys that just aren't that experienced, or not that confident in just sort of joining a league or racing online. It's just here to obviously get guys to make that first step, go out there, have a bit of fun. The cars out here, they're here to teach you, and unfortunately, I don't get as much time as what I'd like to go and help the drivers, but when I can, I do try and give out tips. Sometimes they listen, but quite often they don't. But obviously, for those that are listening and that do want a hand, when I am available, I will obviously go out of my way and try and give you a tip, and that's regardless of the series. So if you're out there, you're driving the supercar, obviously I did fairly well last season. They're not my preferred car, but I'll go out there and give you a hand. Obviously, GT3s, love to give people a hand in those things, and the same with the Formula 1 cars. Obviously, they're my preferred car of choice, and if you're looking to drive those things at any time, I'm happy to help with setup and obviously how to attack a racetrack. So the help is there for those looking to start out. We've got a few guys that are willing, not just myself, but there are a couple other guys that are willing to help. So don't be afraid to ask. Obviously, speaking of rookies and the like, we do have another series starting up. I do believe Scruff or Matt Williams or El Chief, one of his many names. He's starting up a rookie Ferrari Challenge series, which will utilise the F430 from the EEC GT3 pack, and he'll be running that, I believe, on Wednesdays. So that should be coming up pretty soon, and that's to encourage people to obviously get in some GT3 machinery for some rookies, get some experience, get some speed, and hopefully build up a bigger GT3 season in the future.
Exactly, yeah, that Rookie Cup, and it's good they're utilising a one-make Ferrari, because it means they can actually, especially as rookies, work together on building up their pace and their driving style within GT3 as well, because they're all running very similar cars, so they've got similar issues to work with and similar advantages and disadvantages. But yeah, if their result means that we build up to a more numerous and I suppose a better paced GT3 field, then that'll be awesome to see, and it'll be awesome to see some one-make GT3 action, almost like the Ferraris that they were actually at Albert Park on the weekend.
Yes, at Adelaide there was the one-make Adelaide series, and it's for the supercars, yeah, there's the one-make Audi, I think R8 LMS Cup or something like that, and yeah, we got the Ferrari Challenge at Albert Park, so we'll be running something very similar. But obviously, we digress from that now because the drivers have formed up onto the grid, and still awaiting Ricky Slick to hit the grid. There he is, and formation lap is just about to get underway. All right, and away we go. And to lead us off this time, we've got Brendan Ross starting from pole position for the second race with a 2:10.6. Alongside him is Pricky Dick. Luke Joyner will start P3, and he was quite handy in that first race. Obviously, he did make a mistake towards the end, which dropped him behind Gary Neville, who was battling throughout the race. But he'll be hoping to keep it clean and finish behind Gary Neville, who starts just behind him in 4th place. And behind him, we've got Mr. Darude Sandstorm himself, Mike Coulston, starting in 5th. Good to see him back for this one. And Steve Bolger, after bowling his qualifying lap in the first sector, he will start P6. So our race 1 winner, bit of work to do from him, but he's got the pace. And speaking of pace, Termo got the fastest lap in that first race, 2:10.1, and that was out on his own with no slipstream. So if he can string those laps together, he could get himself onto the podium. But still, he's got to be consistent throughout, and that's something he had trouble with in that last race. Behind him in 8th place, we've got Brian Walsh. He'll be hoping to avoid going off at the Lesmos. Did have a couple issues there, and probably at the second chicane there where he spun in qualifying. And at the back, Glenn Miles. He'll be hoping to finish this one. Obviously, got his first DNF of the season, I believe, in race 1. So he beached it at the Ascari chicane and couldn't get out, and that led to his retirement. But he'll be hoping to get back to finishing ways in this one.
Yeah, up to a 9-car grid this time, which would be good. Fingers crossed we do get 9 finishes. As we said, the only DNFs have been related to the giant amounts of sand, which have been both internet connection wise and actually on track wise. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see. The wild card for this race is Mike Coulston. We haven't actually had a chance to see what his pace is like. Granted, he has qualified right in the middle of the field, but that was also because he had a stuff up on his hot lap, so we haven't actually seen his raw pace around here. So he could go further up the field, he could drop further back. It is the big mystery. But yeah, the race is going to be on. I think this one between Brendan Ross and Ricky Slick. Termo's going to have to string something together, possibly from where he is. He has a lot of cars to pass. He's got the pace, but he doesn't have the length of laps to do it. It's only a 7-lap race. And he's going to try and... if this was a scenario where he could then qualify the results for race 2 for race 3, he'd be able to come out clean in race 3. But race 3 is going to be a whole different kettle of fish. So just going to be a case for Termo to try and just get as far up the pointy end as he can and try and get some more points into his bank.
Yeah, I think one thing to look out for, just going to be, once again, in this series, we say it every race, not just every stream, but every race. It's all about consistency in these cars, and we've seen drivers make all kinds of mistakes. Obviously, Brendan Ross in that last race, he made a couple, and that cost him a potential win. Certainly cost him a podium. And Ricky Slick in that last one, probably the most consistent. Obviously, he started off slow, but he was come on strong right at the end of the race. So he'll be hoping to continue that. And Steve Bolger, he'll be hoping, well, for this one, just to get a good start and give himself a chance to battle for a podium and possible win. But there it is, 5 lights. We're away. And one of the red and white cars got a decent start at the back there, as did Ricky Slick, who has the inside and got the good start. And I reckon we'll see Ricky Slick into the lead at the first chicane. Gary Neville moves up into P3 ahead of Luke Joyner. And
no.
There's Brian Walsh Gary Neville is in space, so he's the next astronaut from NASA. He's rolled back over. He's alive. But Brian Walsh there, let's just see what happened on the replay. Yes, we'll have a look on the replay. I think he's just missed his braking point by a good 100 metres. Yeah, it looks like he's just looking at other drivers and then realised he'd braked too late. And he hit Gary Neville right at the anti-cut, and then it sent Gary Neville. Well, he's the first man on Mars. And he's also beached at the moment. Half his car stuck in the gravel trap and he's not moving anywhere, and neither is Brian Walsh.
Yeah, I'm not sure what's happened with Brian Walsh there, whether it was all, because he was involved in some contact there as well. I think it was pretty much everyone from third back who just had a massive accident. So I'm not sure whether it's mechanical related for Brian. I can't see any visible damage on his car, so whether something's happened maybe his end of the world as well, I don't know. But Gary Neville's back underway. Amazing that all 4 wheels are on that car. If that were a real Formula accident, actually it was quite denting the side panel, but if that was a real Formula accident, it would be a full-blown canoe at this point.
We'll probably see broken legs from somebody. Brian Walsh probably have either broken ankles or broken legs. Gary Neville, well, he'd be a bit sore on his left-hand side. But after all that gave Ricky Slick obviously a bit of a lead because Brendan Ross got held up. But Ross quick in the middle sector, gained 4/10. But these two have a big lead over Steve Bolger. And behind him, Termo's moved up to 4th. Coulston in 5th. When Miles, who's had a solid start, he's in 6th. And but unfortunately for Gary Neville, he's way down now after getting a good start. Got himself up to P3 and then unfortunately got wiped out by Brian Walsh. And we've got Luke Joyner also beached at turn 3. So he's beached at Curva Grande.
Yeah, I'm not sure what happened for him either. He was the one we saw diving into frame between Ricky Slick and Brendan Ross. So I'm not sure whether he got contact and then a further contact on the way through that sort of big sweeping right-hander and got punched off there. But yeah, he went well off, so he's slowly inching it back, trying to avoid clicking the engine and clicking the clutch in the process.
Yeah, so just looking at the splits at the end of also that first lap there, purple for Ross in the final 2 sectors, 43.6 in the middle sector. That's very quick, and 44.8. So, and that's also a pretty solid final sector. So he gained a good 0.6 of a second in the second half of the lap. So he's looking pretty quick. But this first sector though, he's actually lost a 10th, and Steve Bolger fastest in the first sector, 41.7 compared to 42.0 to Ross and 41.9 to Ricky Slick. So these three, I reckon we might see them close up by the end of the race, barring mistakes.
Yeah, as we said, Bolger's qualifying position was only down to a spin on his hot lap, but he's shown the last race he had the pace, and I was predicting before we had this qualifying session pan out that it was going to be Bolger and Slick battling again, but qualifying had other ideas. But yeah, it's currently 2-horse battle for the lead, and if they keep battling hard enough, they're going to make it even easier for Bolger to join in and make it a threesome.
Well, the gap for the lead has come down to 1.2 seconds. Brendan Ross purple in the middle sector with 43.6, but Ricky Slick pretty quick in the middle sector himself, as was Bolger, with all of them being in the mid to high 43s, 43.8 for Ricky Slick, 43.6 for Ross, and 43.7 for Bolger. So Bolger pretty quick so far on this lap, but I think that final sector he's actually dropped a bit of time, so I think he's made a slight mistake through Ascari, and that's dropped him time. So Ricky Slick 2:10.6, a 2:10.2 for Brendan Ross, and a 2:10.5 for Bolger. So that final sector for Brendan Ross, very, very quick, 44.5. I think he just got a hint of a slipstream, and that gap now, a second.
Yeah, the gap's closing right down already. Yeah, great laps from Brendan Ross last, especially across the second 2 sectors. So he's getting a lot of good speed out of those straights there, just passing Luke Joyner again. He buried himself right at the deep end of that, so he's still trying to get out of that. He's going to hopefully finish the lap in the next couple of minutes. But that's a costly error for Luke Joyner. But yeah, Brendan Ross, they're just coming through the first time split now. It's a 41.8 to Ricky, 41.9 to Brendan Ross, and 41.97 to Steve Bolger.
Yeah, so Ricky just a hair faster than those chasing him in the first sector, but it's the middle sector where it seems Brendan Ross has the advantage at the moment. And yeah, that gap looks like it's come down maybe a hair. But it'd be interesting to see if these two battle it out and allow obviously Bolger to close in, or if Ross just remains patient and waits to make a move later on in the race, as he gets it very sideways under braking. He might have just clipped the grass under braking for Ascari there, but he holds on to it, and the gap now 0.8 of a second, and probably getting a sniff of a slipstream there.
Yeah, that was some hefty shake and bake without anyone to actually shake and bake with. That was a bit of solo shaking and baking there. But yeah, he's got the pace. The little wiggles probably aren't helping him too much. That was an even bigger wiggle there. Until when I said that, it suggests he's got very rearward biased braking on it, where it's tipping into corners. Yeah, the gap's just peaked at just under a second now. He's got a slightly better run out of that last corner than Ricky has. He's probably just nibbling at the edge of his slipstream as well.
Looks like Ricky just a little bit faster on that lap. Not much, but just a little bit. And behind them, Steve Bolger, 3/10 faster than both of them. But Bolger's going to need a little bit more. He's going to hope that Ross and Slick battle it out as Slick a little bit sideways through turn 1 there. But Ross a little bit sideways on the exit. Behind them, Mike Coulson's all on his own in P4. Behind him, Glenn Miles up to P5. But he's got Turmo, who on that last lap was 8 seconds a lap faster. I think Glenn Miles must have made a mistake in the final sector there, because yeah, he had lost a bit of time, and compared to his best time, he was yeah, quite a ways off in that final sector.
Yeah, looking at where the time that actually occurs, maybe it was something on the way down into possibly a poor runoff off one of the Lesmos, and then possibly something down at Scari, which has been one of his favourite play spots in the previous race.
Yep, so Ricky Slick has actually extended his lead over Brendan Ross in that first sector. We did see Ross getting a little bit sideways out of the first chicane, and I reckon that's cost him as Steve Bolger gets sideways in the background there, coming out of the second Lesmo. Bolger, purple first split, 41.6, but Ricky Slick is pretty quick as well with a 41.7. But I don't think Ricky's middle sector's been all that good. He's lost a 10th to Ross behind. I don't know, just looking at that gap, it looks smaller than that. But indeed, Ross's middle sector was quick, but so was Ricky Slick's. Both of them 43.6, with Ross just half a 10th faster.
Yeah, that was really close to that middle sector. They're both peaking equal pace to each other, and it's everything that's happening in a position where he's still just has a slipstream. So maybe the dirty air in a way is actually better for the pace with these cars. They're actually somehow getting better pace, or maybe they're just able to concentrate more on what they're doing when they're not in a position where they actually are able to look at the car in front and reach them in the next braking zone. So it's probably helping their individual lap times to actually be racing solo for this next couple of laps.
And in that final sector, once again, Ricky Slick 3/10 slower than Brendan Ross. Ross and Bolger 44.7 in the final sector, while Ricky Slick 45.0. And once again, both Ricky Slick and Ross a little bit sideways out of turn 2. So that'll compromise both of them a little bit, but lap times between the front three very, very close. Obviously, Bolger would be obviously kicking himself for ruining his qualifying lap, because he'd be right there. And Ross, well, he's just a little bit unlucky, obviously, with getting caught up in that incident on the first lap. And looks like Turmo's had a spin somewhere, because he's lost out. Yeah, there it is. Just caught it, coming into Parabolica. Outbroke himself, and went down a gear too quick as well at the same time. And then around he goes. There goes Glenn Miles, and Gary Neville got him as well. So that's Turmo back down to 7th. Luke Joyner has got himself going again, which is good to see, and he's going to try and finish. And back at the front, Ricky Slick leads by 1.1 seconds. And just holding on at the moment.
Yeah, I think that gap has actually, increased just ever so slightly, but it's marginal if anything, and that is across a lap where, for example, coming into the third sector now, this has been Ricky's weak one so far this race. So.
Oh, and we've seen. Sorry to cut you off. Just saw that the gap between Bolger and Ross had kicked right out. Bolger had set a purple first sector, 41.5, which is very, very quick. But at the second Lesmo, ran a little bit wide, and if you get onto the gravel in these cars, it will spit you off and it will slow you down, and that's what happened to Bolger, and that cost him a good 5 seconds. So he's now out of the running, barring an incident between Ross and Slick. So it's just a battle royale, as the gap now just a hair over 1 second between Ross and Slick. It's ever so slowly coming together.
Yeah, he's now just within range of him. He's actually just over a second off him. He was actually a little better than that, but he got a little earlier into turn 1 than Ricky did. So Ricky's probably more confidence. But that said, he's got a better run out of the corner. So I think Ricky is getting the pace into the corner, whereas Brendan's getting pace out of the corner, which is the one you actually want to get in really any race car. So yeah, he's down now. He's 9 tenths back. He's still not close enough to pull any moves, so he's just got to keep working away for the next lap and a bit to get into to hopefully get past Ricky in the last couple of points, the last lap. That's his weak spot.
And that's not going to help there. That Ross getting sideways out of the second chicane there, De La Rogia. Would have cost him just a little bit of time, but yeah, it's all about, if I was Ross, you don't focus so much on obviously Ricky in front of you. It's all about hitting your apexes and hitting your points and your marks, and obviously getting yourself as close as possible by setting as fast a lap time as possible, instead of just trying to drive at 1,000,000 miles an hour and concentrating on the car that's just in front of you. Because even though it's 9 tenths of a second, there's quite a bit in these cars, as you can see. Good 70 meters or so.
Yeah, he's. I mean, all he's going to do at this point is he's cruising at the better of the lap. He's just looked through a couple of seconds more than that second taking himself. There's that hundredth right there up on
Oh,
Ricky
and
there.
Slick gets
And
a
a big slide for Ricky as well, yeah.
Yeah, massive slide there, and that's going to give Ross a very good run into turn 1. He already got the gap under a second and had a hint of a slipstream. Now he's got a pretty sizable hole as he sets 2:09.7. That is the fastest lap of the weekend. And Ricky Slick goes defensive, and he's going to have to pull off some kind of masterstroke, I reckon, with the way Ross is driving. Ross around the outside. He's got the inside for turn 2. Both drivers giving each other room. But Ricky Slick gets the better traction, holds on for now, but Brendan Ross will have to slipstream into the second chicane.
Yeah, Brendan Ross saved all his drainage points on the first race. He just used them. He was very heavy on the engine, gearbox in that downshift. He didn't really rev out the engine of his chicane in the first, but he used to try everything to get the pace and to get an edge on Ricky. Ultimate pace doesn't matter so much anymore. You have to be able to outpace him into a corner or to a step, which you get past him. He doesn't have a lot left. There's not a lot of time left to do that.
Ricky gets a little bit sideways under braking for the first Lesmo, but Ross, if he's smart, he has to sort of time it. He's got to get it done at the final corner, because if he gets it done beforehand, it's going to give Slick one more chance. So it's not so. It is about obviously overtaking, but it's about where you do it. So he's got to be smart about it, but he is going to go for it coming into Ascari.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised to see potentially Ricky might actually. No, I was going to say I wouldn't be surprised to see him back out of that corner to actually try and get the run on him, then up on the way up to Cobalt to get him back there again. But he's going to try and hold him off here.
Ross just a little bit wide there, so he got a slightly better exit. It's going to make it just a little bit harder for Ross now. And Ross going to try and do what Ricky did to Bolger last time out. And saw how that went. Obviously couldn't quite hold on around the outside. Both braking very late, but Slick holds on for now, and looks like he will hold on to the start-finish line.
Yeah, it does. He's in the system. He's not close enough. If the start-finish line was where it usually, or it used to be, it would be a different story. But that's a very close, very hard-fought race.
Yeah, so that was 3 thousandths of a second difference between the first race, between first and second, and the second. I think the first race that finished is 0.088, and this one 0.091. In third place, Steve Bolger. See that, obviously running wide there. The second Lesmo cost him dearly. Dropped him out of it, obviously a chance to battle for the lead at the end there. Behind them, we've got a massive gap to Mike Coulston and Brendan and Gary Neville. So these guys must have had a couple spins. Yep. Looking at the last of this lap, actually, Mike Coulston, he was about 16, 15 seconds down on what he'd normally be in the middle sector. So it's given Gary Neville a bit of a carrot, but he's not going to be close enough. So Mike Coulston will take fourth in race 2. And behind him, Gary Neville will finish P5. And then Termo, who once again has had a bit of a mare. He's just coming through Parabolica now, well, drifting it and then spinning it and into the wall. And
Yeah, not a
and
good form to put in the gravel trap there because he's going to get it all the way back out of there just to make it to the end.
and Glenn Miles is also beached at the gravel trap at Ascari, so hopefully if he doesn't get it out there soon, he just retires. Same with Terma, otherwise we're going to be waiting here for a while for these two to finish.
Yeah, I think the best thing out of this, not so much it can help in the points standing, but Johnny gets a chance to unlap himself, one lap on both of them. He's 2 laps down, so it won't actually affect the result in any way, but he gets to unlap himself, 1 lap on Termo and Joyner through all this. So there is a silver lining of sorts in this ending.
Yep, so just looking at Termo at the moment, looks like he's just edging towards the tarmac on the exit, the final corner there. And Glenn Miles also, he's a fair way away from any kind of smoother pastures. In fact, the race might actually end.
It just did.
Yeah,
It
just did. So both those guys actually, they're not going to be classified because they didn't get to the start-finish line in time. They didn't finish under their own power. And so both.
So that actually has affected the result. Then it has put 2 finishing laps down. Joyner will finish above them on the points.
Yep. So that's one thing in this, well, in all this series really, you've got to finish to get points, and neither of them got to the finish line, so they don't get points.
Yeah, to finish first you must finish.
All right, so we'll just take a short break. I've got to go through and sort the grid for the final race of this current Rookie Cup season. So we shall be back soon. Alright, and welcome back. It is reverse grid time. It is the final race of the season. And I do believe Steve Bolger is the champion. But it's time for one more final race in the Formula Trainers / Formula Fords here at Monza. We've had two cracking finishes with both races 1 and 2 being the winner and second place being separated by less than a tenth of a second. Hopefully we see that a third time, and hopefully there's a third car in the mix. But we've just begun the formation lap, and Ricky Slick, having only raced the previous round, is leading us away. He'll start from pole position and in prime position, obviously, with the pace he has shown so far, and winner, I should say, of the previous race, Luke Joyner, who's been alright so far. Obviously had a spin last time out in race 2, but his pace isn't too bad, so he could he'll give himself a chance if he can keep it on the road this time out to nab a good result here. He starts P2, Mike Coulston. Darude Sandstorm himself starting P3. Len Biles will start P4. Gary Neville in P5. He'll be hoping not to get wiped out this time. And we've got Turmo starting P6. And we've got Brendan Ross. He's well behind the rest of the field. He's going to start P7. And our champion-elect, Steve Bolger, will start at the back of the grid.
Yeah, we've lost one racer in the interim there, Brian Walsh, who unfortunately, I've heard a couple of sim-related braking incidents that across my limited time in AMSLs, and you reeled one for me also across the break. But yeah, a bit too much force under braking, a bit too much force sort of feedback from that pedal has meant that rather than the pedal braking, the weak point has then become his seat, and his seat rail is actually detached from the seat. So he's no longer in a position with a stable seat to apply any pedal pressure to anything, and so he's had to sit out this last race, unfortunately. So that brings us down to 8 cars.
Yes, I've heard many stories, including I've had it happen to myself back in the day, where the steering wheels have come loose, and people have had spins and had incidents and stuff like that. But at turn 1 at Monza, to have obviously something like that happen with your brake pedal and your seat moving like that into turn 1 off the start is, well, to say it's not ideal is an understatement. So, of all places, that's probably the worst. But from what I hear, Gary Neville enjoyed the view from Mars, and thankfully he's joined us on the grid for the final race. But he'll be hoping to get a bit further this time.
Well, hopefully a bit further up the grid, and hopefully not a bit further into the solar system.
Yes, a bit further around the racetrack this time around, as opposed to into outer space. That said, though, first man on Mars, Gary Neville. So if we can just all give him a round of applause, that would be greatly appreciated. Alright, so drivers now forming up onto the grid. It's like Miles having a little bit of trouble, but he's formed up now. And we're 1 light, 2, 3, 4, 5. Away we go. And Ricky Slick looked like he got a fantastic start. He was the only one that really got away, so he's got a massive lead already. Gary Neville's going to move up into P2. Brendan Ross on the inside of Gary Neville. He might, in fact, move up to P2. Coming into the first corner. Behind Ross, that looks like Steve Bolger. And, well, Neville now trying to hold off. I think that's... Oh, no, Gary Neville goes round. Yeah, too much throttle there on the exit of turn 2. I think he was trying to fend off Mike Coulston? No, Luke Joyner there. So Luke Joyner had a fairly... Well, he had an average start, but into turn 1, he obviously was fighting back there. So with that spin, that moved Luke Joyner back up to 4th. And Steve Bolger now in the slipstream. And right behind Brendan Ross. So it's battle resumed for the front 3. But this time it's much closer, and we've had a spin. I believe that's, Mike Coulston has spun it at the chicane. De La Rogia. And his front end of the car is beached, but thankfully not too badly, and he gets himself out and he'll be able to continue. We've got Gary Neville still in the gravel trap at the first chicane, so I think that's one thing these guys will certainly be looking forward to for next season. Hopefully not getting beached in the gravel trap, which these cars are very prone to.
Yeah, speaking of beached, Glenn Miles was beached as well at the outside of the first Lesmo as well. So couple drivers not having the best of luck. Couple drivers already planning their off-season breaks for the beach time.
Yeah, Glenn Miles just a bit too quick there through coming into the first Lesmo and just understeered straight off. And Brendan Ross and Ricky Slick had a fairly solid middle sector, and they've sort of broken away a little bit from Steve Bolger. And Bolger behind him, he's got 4.5 seconds to turn. These guys are the 4 fastest drivers around this circuit, but the front two, bit of a gap over Bolger, and Bolger, a bit of a gap over Turmo, who has spun it once again at the final corner. He's gone backwards trying to J-turn it, and he gets it going. Thankfully no one near him to run up the back of him, because he spun right back onto the racing line. But back at the front, Ricky Slick and Brendan Ross side by side into the first chicane, and Steve Bolger will have a little bit of a smile, because that'll help him close up. Ricky Slick trying to hold on around the outside. It is possible at the chicane, but it'll give Ross a good run coming out of turn 2.
Yeah, I want a bit of a wiggle there for Ricky in the first part. He can't land running right on the ragged edge there. Ross is just moving to the outside. He's looking to have a look through the next second corner. He wasn't actually going to. I don't think he had the speed to quite make that work. He's talking the car and dive into the second chicane.
And behind them, Steve Bolger looking very close. Ross thought about having a look and having a dive, but decides better of it. And looks like he'll bide his time for now. But yeah, that gap between himself and Bolger now was, I think, just tick over 2 seconds. It's now 1.5. And Yellow's out at the Lesmo, so it's like, I think Glenn Miles still beached there in the gravel trap. Just have a look. Yeah, he's still out there. He should probably just park it, because he ain't going to get out there without blowing his engine. So his race is unfortunately done after 6 corners. Brendan Ross got a good run out of Lesmo 2. Feigns going to the inside, goes to the outside. Very late on the brakes, very squirmy, very sideways. And Ricky Slick holds on for now, but Steve Bolger, that gap was 1.2 seconds just before Ascari, and I reckon it's a bit less than that now.
Yeah, it's down to just over 1 second now, that gap, and it's unfortunately a bad run for Bolger there off that corner. Didn't help him, but neither Ricky or Ross really had a good run off that corner either with that big battle they were having. If Brendan Ross had pulled off that move earlier, or even this move, very serious, about to pull off this move actually.
Up the inside
and passing and driving.
Yeah, Ross up the inside, so he got a better exit out of Ascari, but now Ricky Slick, he's got the slipstream into turn 1.
He's got a lot of straight that he can use. He's already pulled out, and he's Ross is actually not going to push him out of the track. He's going to leave him a bit of space and also try and outbrake him. Nope, he's actually got on the brakes early.
That's it though. He's very good under braking though. Tried to hang it around the outside, but obviously if he hadn't have broken traction there, he might have still remained side by side with Ricky Slick coming out of the first chicane, but he couldn't quite manage it, got a little bit sideways, and now he's behind Ricky Slick, and he's got Steve Bolger now, about half a second back.
Yeah, Bolger just got a best lap that last time around, a 2:10.562, which is it's the quickest lap so far this race. He's now right on the back of these two. If any of them make a mistake or even without that, he's Bolger on the pace. He can. This is very likely to be a 3-horse battle in the next couple of corners.
If I was Steve Bolger, I'll just be sitting here and just biding my time, because as we've seen in this series in particular, if you start rushing things and start trying to force stuff, that's when obviously the mistakes do come. So just wait for these guys to battle a little bit, wait for your opportunity, and then come like 5, 6, and 7, that's probably when you want to start making your move.
Yeah, speaking of moves, Brendan Ross just having a peekaboo out the side of the Slick car. The thing that's coming out, we'll probably be just putting the white thread and doing number 1 squarely in the mirrors of number 11. just reminding him that they're just trying to push him off his game. But Ricky's going to understand a little while. It's going to be hard to put him off his game that easily.
And Ricky goes defensive, very aggressively, must be said, on the inside, and it's going to force Rossi to try and go around the outside. Sort of walks him a little bit, and obviously Slick going on the inside compromised his speed. That's allowed Steve Bolger to close up on the both of them. Rossi now having a look up the inside coming out the final corner. Rossi will get that done, and Bolger, I reckon he might have a go for the lead as well. They're going to be 3 wide down into turn 1.
Yeah, I've seen that building, and yeah, it looks like he managed to have a slipstream off of Brendan Ross there, where Brendan Ross had none off the back of Ricky, so they are just about 3 wide. They're actually now 3 wide under braking.
Oh, a little bit of a lock-up, little bit of a touch, and that's unfortunately forced the car on the outside of Ricky Slick to take the lead. He'd probably get a track cut for that. He does emerge into the lead, but I do believe he lifted off just a little bit, allows Brendan Ross through, and Bolger, obviously, was the most aggressive one of the lot there, trying to break, well, maybe not the most aggressive, but certainly a little bit crazy to try and force it 3 wide. But he sort of got bumped by Rossi, who outbroke himself. And that forced him into Ricky Slick and forced Ricky Slick wide as Bolger there very sideways through the chicane, and that's ruined his rhythm, and now he's got a big job on his hands just to close that gap down.
He does. Slick did actually accrue a track cut penalty through that first sector. His first sector has been zeroed. It doesn't show up on live showing, but he's still got race pace regardless. He's currently putting the pressure all up around the side of Brendan Ross, possibly trying to go around the outside into Ascari.
Yeah, so Steve Bolger's going to hope that these guys continue to battle for the next couple of laps. Otherwise, he's probably not going to be able to close the gap. But Ross goes defensive into Ascari. Ricky Slick going to try and hold on around the outside, and he makes it stick. So a fantastic move from Ricky Slick. Unfortunately, though, there's a big straight down to a braking zone. He goes defensive early, and a little bit of a touch there. But he's just hugging the line on the inside, and he's going to force Brendan Ross to go around the outside.
He is, yeah. It's what that's proved so far, especially at the end of the race. It's not be the place to go to pick up the line. The inside line is quite favourable around Parabolica, and he's proved it again. But he's actually had an issue with mid-corner speed, and Ross has now got to run on him down towards the line and down towards the first turn.
Yeah, so Ross will probably take the lead into turn 1. The gap was 2.2 behind him to Steve Bolger. It's now 1.4, so these guys holding each other up, and it's bringing Steve Bolger back into play once again.
Yep, that was definitely not looking for Brendan Ross. But actually, oh no, he's not going for a move now. That was very squirrely under brakes for Ricky there. But he's just managed to pull it up.
A bit of a traction issue as well for Rossi. He has held him up and dropped him a little bit of time. Like Bolger had a bit of a struggle through the first chicane as well. Just cut to a replay to see what happened. And Bolger wide at turn 1 and then lost the back end at a half sort of spin. So that's moved him well behind the front 2. So once again, he's hoping that Ross and Slick continue to battle, because he got himself back in with a chance for the second time this race, but he blew it, and he's going to have to hope for a miracle for a third chance.
Yeah, they are battling quite hard. I just saw Ricky getting very sideways there over that second chicane. So he is possibly feeling a bit of pressure, or the need to try and go an extra 10th, which he may or may not be able to do in this race, and try and keep Brendan Ross's gun sights off of the back of the number 11. But yeah, look, just seeing back to the attack. Current laps, 2:12s and 2:14s to the leaders. Termo popped out 2:11.253. Still a bit back on the best lap, but Termo again putting down some good laps to the middle of the field.
And Brendan Ross trying to go around the outside, much like Ricky Slick did to him on the previous lap, but not quite as brave on the brakes. And Ricky Slick holds on to the lead. And once again, Ricky Slick hugging the inside into a Parabolica. But Ross got a better run out of Ascari's. We see, I think that's Termo in the background coming out of Ascari's, had a spin. It's for the lead.
There's Termo, yes.
But the battle for the lead. Ricky Slick continues to lead. Ross still right there with him, and he'll get a good run into the first chicane. So we'll just cut back for a second. So Luke Joyner now has moved in front of Termo. So Termo just understeered through the mid part, caught the grass, and once he caught the grass, he lost all control. And he went, and he's had to J-turn it once again. Nice little J-turn, but he's lost all his speed, and Luke Joyner says, yeah, I'll take that, mate. And once again, cutting to the lead. Brendan Ross up the inside in the first chicane. A little bit of contact between himself and Slick, but Ross holds on for now. But now that he leads, he's giving up the slipstream to the car behind.
Yeah, that was again the first of the late breakers was Brendan Ross, but he ended up much better getting the top of the corner. Later back, he had more time on the break to get it stopped for the corner, and that's how he got through. But
Ricky having another go. He's having another go into the second chicane, De La Roja, and he gets it done. So Ricky wants that lead back as soon as possible. But Ross looks like he got a better exit. He's having a look into the first Lesmo, and Ricky Slick gives him the space. And Brendan Ross back into the lead, but there's a big straight after this second Lesmo, so I'm pretty sure with the way this race has been going so far, Ricky Slick, yeah, he's had a good exit here. Well, a fairly decent exit anyway. Probably have a go. But Brendan Ross trying to break the toe.
Yeah, this is some of the racing I was alluding to at the very start of the broadcast, that it was going to be a lot of slipstream involving battles. And a lot of this is guys getting a good run, picking up slipstream and making passes done. We've seen the lead change already, I think, 2 or 3 times and stuff, and it's probably going to happen another time when we get the flag this time around.
Ross was a little bit wide through the initial part of Ascari and got a bit sideways, but Ricky Slick didn't have the grace run through the middle part of the corner, and that's allowed Ross to sort of break away just a little bit. And the gap behind them, they lost 9/10 of a second to Steve Bolger in the middle sector. Steve Bolger 43.6 compared to a 44.5 and 44.4 as Ricky Slick tries to go around the outside of Parabolic and gets a slide on. And that's going to allow Ross to hold on to the lead, as behind them it looks like Bolger very, very wide. So Bolger trying to be very late on the brakes. And, well, with Ricky running wide there, it's allowed Ross to get a little bit of a gap. Bolger's had the fastest lap of the race, which could have been faster, might I add. But Ross holds the advantage now. He's got a good 0.6 of a second that Ricky's going to have to make up. But that said, Ricky's coming from a long way back, has a look. He's made up all that time in one braking zone. He's right behind Rossi, and he's getting himself a chance coming into the Curva Grande and the De La Roja.
Make it all up in the braking zone, which was showing as his weakness early in the race. Shows he's keeping some of his cards up his sleeve. The such as in that lap as well.
He's having a go. He was good last time around through the chicane under braking, and he gets it done. But Rossi holds on. They give each other space, and Slick into the lead for now, and it's allowed Steve Bolger to close right up. So it's going to be a 3-car battle for the remaining half a lap here at the final round of the Rookie Cup of Season 3.
Yeah, this is the sort of the end note you want to a series of 3-car battle for the lead. That's been going on with the high race.
Bolger's just dropped a bit of time there, ran wide at the Lesmo, the second Lesmo there. Ross got a good exit, and that's going to force Ricky Slick to go defensive coming into Ascari. And Ross is going to have to try and break late, much like obviously Ricky Slick did earlier on in this race. And he's going to try it. Ricky Slick gives him the space, and Ross holds on for now. But now he's got to contend with obviously giving up a slipstream to Ricky Slick behind. And Ricky Slick's got a good exit. Ross swerves a little bit after the exit there to try and break the toe, but he's going to want to hold that inside line and force Ricky to the outside. And Ricky does go to the outside. And he turns in a little bit. He's sliding. He's held it. Ricky Slick into the lead around the outside of Parabolica. They've got Bolger right behind as well. It's going to be a dead heat as Rossi got a decent exit. But Ricky Slick around the outside at the final corner steals the win. And the top 3 cars are separated by under 0.2 of a second. And we had an even closer finish to than the first race. And, well, that was a rather extraordinary finish as Brendan Ross gives Ricky Slick a bit of a nudge there. But what a finish. In fact, we've got to see a replay of that. So we'll just ride on board. In fact, we'll ride on board Steve Bolger as he had the best view of it. So here we go. Ricky Slick pulls out. He brakes it about about 70 metres. Ross got a little bit of a slide on, which cost him a little bit. But Ricky very late on the brakes and was able to hold it around the outside. And thankfully for him, the start-finish line right there at the start of the pit lane, and he steals the victory right at the death. And in 4th place, Luke Joyner. He actually set a 2:09.7 according to this, so I don't know if he's cut the track or if that was legitimate, but that's a very, very fast lap time. In fact, I'm just going to have a look at the live timing.
Yeah, I believe that is kind of a long time as well. That was a purple first and second sector. Second sector was bloody quick as well, so he's... Yeah, I believe that's legit.
That's the second fastest lap of the weekend. So, very quick. Unfortunately, he's left it for the last lap of the last race of the season. So, a bit annoying for him. And Termurray had a very... well, he had speed this round, but didn't quite have the consistency. He had numerous spins in each of the races, and he finished P5 in the final race of the season. Mike Coulston finished in 6th, and Gary Neville now still going, and he's going to finish in P7 with Glenn Miles, our only retirement. So we've had 3 very close finishes, but I don't think anything tops that that finish there to race 3. I know obviously last season in the WEC there was a epic battle for the lead and for the championship, might I add, but I reckon that that finish just about tops it. I reckon that was an insane overtake and an insane finish.
Yeah, that's the sort of racing that you pay to see, or you go to see at any point. That's the racing you want to see when you put money down to enter a racetrack and jump in a grandstand. That was nuts. I haven't seen racing that close, either in a real sense or in a sim racing sense, for a long time. And that was nuts. To have 3 cars separated by tenths at the line, and not even. That was insane, and that was some of the best racing I've seen in a little while.
Well, we had all 3 races were decided by less than a tenth of a second between first and second. But yes, that last one around the outside at the final corner, and with 3rd place lurking as well. That was quite an incredible finish. And well, we might as well give these guys an interview. I do believe we have Ricky Slick in the studio. Ricky, that was that was quite an epic finish there to that final race.
You boys pay the money, you boys get to see the racing.
Damn straight. So, what was your mindset coming into, obviously, that coming out of Ascari and coming into Parabolica there? Did you think you could pull it off going around the outside, or did you just have another can of bourbon?
I was just thinking to myself, heck, boys, this shit's been balls to the wall, now let's slap him against the ceiling.
Certainly, but you had, once again, a very competitive weekend, but with obviously 2 wins, obviously race 2, and then obviously stealing the win there in that, obviously that last round, or last race on the last lap. So will we see you next season in the F3s?
Boys, if you don't see me, I've fallen victim to a Sasquatch attack.
Damn right. Alright, so we've also got Brendan Ross with us. So Rossi, you had speed, didn't quite have as much consistency as what you would have hoped, but you also had a couple epic finishes there.
Yeah, it was good night overall. Probably stuffed up race 1, but count that out. Race 2 and 3 was probably one of the best races I think all season. So would have been good viewing and definitely tons of fun to race old mate Ricky and Bulger.
Yeah, certainly. Obviously, that last lap there was a very memorable one. What were you thinking throughout that lap? Obviously, you were behind, and then you got the lead, and then right at the end there, you lost it again.
Yeah, I knew something different was coming. It was just the way he is. So I didn't pick the outside slide then to knock me out in front. So he definitely got that one over me. So well done to him. But hopefully next time he's out, we can get him back.
Well, you guys had a bit of respect between you as well. Obviously, wheel to wheel for a couple races there, and plenty of space being given as well, which is good to see.
Yeah, so pretty hard fair racing. Like nothing else that we race is these are very fragile, so you don't really want to go out touching each other compared to other series. So it was just good to have the room and yeah, pass cleanly.
All right. So once again, we'll see some great racing from you, and you'll be looking forward to see hopefully another good season for you next time out.
Hopefully, thank you.
All right, and our final interview, I guess we'll go with our champion, Steve Bolger. So it's been a rather up and down season for you, but obviously you've been at I believe at every round, and that's led you to the championship. See, last year didn't quite work out. You had the pole positions, couldn't quite convert it, but this season you did a better job with converting it.
Yeah, this year feels like just points for attendance. It's a shame Wayne couldn't make it the last couple of rounds, but he was well in front for a while. But yeah, good racing, mate. Great fun this, and especially the last race tonight when we were 3 wide into turn 1 and didn't touch each other. I thought was pretty good. And then at the end, I was trying to do a Steve Bradbury come through.
Yeah, it did look like the smartest strategy, obviously, with when you got two cars battling like that, especially on a last lap. It is a very real possibility. But obviously, your first race, you did well, I believe, I'm just trying to go off the top of my head now. I do believe that first race, yes, that you did pretty well. But your second and third races, you did make a couple mistakes there, which, especially in that third race where you made two mistakes, which put you well back. And were you a bit frustrated by those? Because you seem to have made a couple of them this season.
Yeah, very sloppy in both those races. The first one was quite alright. Made a couple of little mistakes at the end that allowed Ricky to close up. But yeah, not very good. The second and third race would have been 5 seconds behind if the boys weren't fighting as hard as they were for so long.
Do you or is there anything you can sort of pinpoint on sort of why you made these mistakes? Is it just a lapse in concentration, pushing too hard, or is it just a certain characteristic of the car that perhaps led you to make these little mistakes?
Nah, just over driving when trying to close a gap, I think. Or when I make a little one, I compound it a bit more by over driving to recover it, and it goes a bit downward from there. So I just got to get that out of the game.
Fair enough, but at least this time around, obviously you are champion, and in that last race for once, we are used to. Obviously, obviously last season you would qualify in pole and end up 10th by by turn 1. You started obviously down the field in this one, at the back of the field, and ended up 3rd by turn 1. So it must have been pretty happy that you finally nailed one.
Seemed to get the hang of the starts this year, and these cars was a bit better than the minis. Last year was terrible in that regard, but didn't have the pace that I did in the minis, but was good with the starts, I think. And then, yeah, I'll say points for turning up, I think, come to every round, and that's what made the difference.
All right. Well, once again, congratulations, and well, we hope to see you in the F3 series coming up.
Certainly will. Thanks very much.
All right, lads. Well, that just about does us here from Automobilista Australia. This is obviously the end of the third season of the Rookie Cup. Obviously, next season will be in Formula 3s. I've just got to sort out the calendar for that. That will be in a couple of weeks' time. But coming up, obviously, I believe on Thursday we have the Supercars or the Super 2 series from Albert Park. Hopefully, we get just as big a grid as we did at Adelaide. That was a massive grid for that one. And that is on Thursday. That will be, I believe, on Nether's channel. So that's one thing to look out for. And then obviously on Sunday we have the Formula 1 Championship from the Kingdom of Bahrain. The track link for that is on Discord at the moment, and also for those that are obviously wondering and want to obviously jump in an F1 car, there's plenty of free spots available, and obviously there's traction control and anti-lock brakes available for those that aren't quite confident enough to tackle these beasts without obviously either of those driving aids. And then obviously on Monday night we have the Touring Car Championship once again, and that's from the very difficult Curvelo circuit. I do believe that is the shorter version of that. I think it's the the Curvello, I think the Circus, the A version, I believe. But either way, it's the shorter version, and that's it. But it will be a very long lap in the touring cars, and but it will be hopefully another cracking one next Monday. All right. We hope you've enjoyed this broadcast, and we hope to see you next time. Cheers.